Yeah, I'm Hallie Labont, and this is Mega, coming to you from Twin Hills Community Church, where every single week we're giving our mega church a tiny family feel. Ooh, I love to introduce you to members of our church staff and people from our community. I always find it to be a treat and a treasure. And per usual, I'm joined by my co-host. He's the youth pastor for our high school ministry called Climax. Please welcome Gray Haas.
Jesus is lit, Hallie. How are you? And I'm so excited to be here.
Ooh, I am too blessed to be stressed, too anointed to be disappointed, and way too grateful to be hateful. Well, just like Jesus said, if your eyeball causes you to sin, pluck it out. Our guest today is here to protect those eyeballs and keep them from looking at filthy film. It's my pleasure to introduce to you your friend and mine, Mr. Randy Dudley. How you doing today, Randy?
I am feeling blessed in the extreme. I almost feel, have you ever felt this way? Too blessed.
So blessed, too blessed.
I could use less of it because, I've wanted to be on this podcast for quite some time. I know that I have emailed you and I have in person beseeched you many times. I've asked many, many times, and I'm so glad to be here. I couldn't be more enthused.
Well, that is true. I guess, I do answer most of the emails that come into the account, and Randy has, you have been reaching out a lot over the years because, you have this, I guess, a personal mission. And I guess sometimes I fail to see how relevant it is because it does kind of deal with something that I wouldn't say is the most relevant challenge in the church right now. But, we didn't have anybody on the pod this week, and we had a few cancellations. And so we brought you in. And so I guess I just want to start out with what is this whole thing that you keep emailing us about? It's kind of, you just say a lot of times it's a lot of exclamation points with, stop this film, or beware this film, or don't subscribe to streaming services that have this film. So can you tell us a bit about your mission here?
I've emailed you, it's been over 100 times from 3 different email addresses because I was concerned that, the first particular, and then, my daughter taught me how to know and to tell whether someone has read your email or not. That's something you can do. And so I know that you've read them. But anyway, we should move past that for sure because I'm here now. Whatever brought me here, of course, I'm so thankful. I'm thankful to God for moving you to invite me finally on. But I am surprised to hear you. I'm sorry. What did you say? I don't hear you as well as I hear myself in my microphone.
I'm saying, and I'm saying, I guess I did invite you on. Like I said, we did have a cancellation.
Okay, right. Well, whatever that, God caused that person to cancel and to bring me in here. I'm sure of that.
Right.
And so I'm just so thankful to be here. I'm thrilled. And I hope that the person who canceled is okay. But
they weren't actually. But so what's going on with all these emails? I'm just trying to get to the bottom of the emails, honestly, and the really long emails.
Yes, I know. That's interesting because it tells me that you open the email, but I guess it doesn't tell me that you read every word. And so now it sounds a little bit like that you don't, but that's fine.
They're very long, I guess is what I'm saying.
Here I come to the heart of the meat of the matter. Okay. So you may recall that in I believe it was 79, this British, and I'm going to use scare quotes and air quotes when I say comedy group, they called themselves Monty Python. They told you they was a snake when you invited them in.
Wow.
And they had released a film that was an affront and an insult and an attack upon our Savior. And they called it The Life of Brian. And they was trying to get people confused. It's about somebody named Brian. It doesn't have anything to do with Scripture. It doesn't have anything to do with Jesus. But this film was an absolute attack on Christian faith from start to finish. And at that time, there was protests. People was picketing the theaters, and people was saying out loud and proud and anywhere they could, don't see this film, don't patronize it. And it was rather effective, as a matter of fact. But here's the problem now. That thing is come and gone from the movie theaters where you could picket something in person, right? But that doesn't mean it's gone. And I made this
Oh.
discovery very unhappily because we had to get a new TV for the rec room because our old TV had audio but no visual, which, by the way, is fine. It was fine with me. But, Amanda wanted to see her NCIS. And that's not the first time I've accused her of wanting to look at Mark Harmon. But anyway, we had to get a new TV. And this TV has built into it the Netflix
Okay.
application to which you can stream a film. And
Oh.
we signed up for a month of free, only to find there's the life of Brian being
Oh.
shoved right in front of our faces. Through it, all we did was try to buy a television. That's all we did.
Mhm.
We didn't mean to
Mhm.
invite the devil into our home in that way. But there it is. And so I just said, well, I don't know where to pick it. Do you understand?
Yep.
When it's playing in your local multiplex, you know where to go and what to write on your sign and who to talk to. It's the people trying to come in and see this filth. But now this whole new world is so much more difficult, and I got to get the word out there any way I can.
Yep. Yep. Randy,
Wow,
it
what a
is
story.
yes, and I
Yes.
agree with you, Randy. It's a real problem because I used to boycott the stores that sold pornography, and
Mm-hmm.
now there's free porno online. And my kids say, well, then you should boycott your iPhone, Mom, which you cannot do. And I think you are really putting your finger on a massive Christian conundrum.
It's a real problem, and I've tried picketing the stores where you can buy a computer, but the number of steps you have to walk people through to get to, well, now it's the computer that makes a Netflix possible that allows them to put it on to your. I've been over to Best Buy and I'm out there handing out literature, and it's like a 5-page long explanation to where now the TVs, and they're all connected to they call it Wi-Fi. And
Right.
then that's
Mhm.
how you get it, and Best Buy is culpable, and people you need a simple message sometimes. That's my problem.
I noticed the diagram that you put in the emails. It's, I guess, a sort of a hand-drawn diagram connecting, internet to Netflix, Netflix to Netflix algorithm, the Netflix algorithm connecting all the way back to Life of Brian. And I
Right.
guess, I did get that far in the email about, how
Okay.
you're making all these connections. But
That's great. I
something.
sent it, by the way, actual size is how I
Okay.
sent you in the email. I had the choice between small, medium, large, and actual size to send you the photograph of the diagram. I hope that was
Right.
okay.
Yeah. The emails come in, unfortunately, I have to go to a Google Drive to look at the emails because it's over 2 gigs of image sometimes. And that
Well,
can be
because I want to
difficult.
send it to you as a PDF and as a JPEG and as a JPEG 2000.
Right.
Ah.
And then I do attach an MP3 and an MP4 where I explain what's on the diagram, audio only, and then audio and video.
Yeah.
And it's an
These are really.
AIFC file as well. Yes, what were you asking?
Well, I guess, and going all the way back, because these are rather large data files that we're dealing with. And there are a lot of different files flying around, but I guess I just wanted to go back to something that you said earlier, which I do agree this is a Christian conundrum, but I was really interested that for years you had a television that played audio only.
Sounds like
And
a radio.
I mean it does sound like that does sound like a radio to me. And
It's
so
not
was your
unlike a
wife watching?
radio.
Okay,
Is
was your
there a
wife
chance it
watching?
was a radio?
Right, was your wife watching NCIS on the radio?
Oh, no, it wasn't. I believe, no, we had a television.
Okay.
Vizio sold it to us. Do you know Vizio?
Ah. Yep. Yep. Yep.
It
Yep.
come
Yep.
from Vizio, and I don't know where they are, where they're located, but we loved that television, and it was
Okay.
just fine. And then, but we had it for I don't know how many years before the picture simply went away, and we thought, well, we have to
Okay.
get rid of it, don't we? But the sound was there, and I said we can get used to this, and we just about did. And in some ways, it makes things more interesting. If you watch The Family Feud, for instance.
Uh-huh,
Mm-hmm.
uh-huh.
You don't know the body language between the family members, and you know what
Mm.
I mean. And you can only guess. You have to guess what they look like, and
It's
that's a whole
probably
other
hard for
thing.
something like Wheel of Fortune too, where you just have no idea what's going on.
Well, I tell you what, Wheel of Fortune's one of the better ones because it makes it so much harder for you to play along at home. You can't see which letters have been turned
Right.
over on the board.
Well,
You have to
sure. Yeah.
remember. You have to hear
Uh-huh.
when they say, is there an H? And then you hear, yes, there's two H's. Bing, bing. You have to remember it or write it down in a pad of paper, which sometimes we do keep. Well, of course, we keep a pad of paper by the TV to write down if things we can't see and we wish we had.
It was probably really shocking. I mean, how many years were you just listening to your television?
Oh, it wasn't that long. It was only, I think, 9 years
Okay. And
that we
Vanna White
had.
didn't even change in that time.
Well, it's funny you should say that because I don't agree. When we got the visual back on, I was shocked at how much,
Is
Really?
that right?
not just Vanna White, but everyone on television had had a hard 9 years. It's been rough on everyone. And maybe you don't realize it because you've been seeing it day by day gradually. But Ryan
Okay.
Seacrest looks terrible.
Is
He
that
looks terrible.
right? Oh
Uh,
no.
who else was it? We were not impressed with Lionel Richie's face. We thought he
Okay.
had a hard 9 years as well.
Uh-huh.
We do watch a lot of American Idol, but can't stop. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. I was surprised, and I was surprised by Vanna White in particular. I thought I can see it around her jowls.
Really?
Mhm.
Really?
Well, it really grieves the heart of God, when women just continue to age, and it's just the one thing that we cannot abide by. And if I might offer you a word basket of encouragement, Randy,
Please.
I think just listening to Wheel of Fortune, or as I just refer to it as the wheel,
Sure.
that you were doing more brain exercises and you are getting smarter than someone who had the visual. Because if you hear a word has two H's in it, you don't know where they're located in the word. So you're even at a further disadvantage. And I just was wondering, was it the word church?
Oh, a word with two H's? There's a number of
Yeah.
different words it could be, but church is certainly one of them. And I've
Ah,
written many letters to Wheel over the years saying we'd like to have more words from Scripture in the puzzles.
awesome.
And
Awesome.
it's a unique letter every time I write it. By the way, I don't believe in writing a form letter because it's too easy for them to dismiss. And for them, I'll send you an email, but for them, I don't have an email address for the Wheel. This
Right.
is a postage paid uh stamp, and I don't believe in those forever stamps. I think that's wrong.
Oh,
I buy
really?
my I try to put together the amount of postage that it is, which currently is 68 cents. I don't know if you know that.
Okay.
Oh,
I thought you
wow.
meant you don't believe they exist.
Oh, yeah.
Oh no, I have seen them. I've received mail with a forever stamp on it, and I thought that's simply wrong. Nothing's
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
The only things that's forever is our eternal soul.
Isn't that right?
Now,
That's right.
Randy, of course, I do want to go back to the reason that you came on, which I have a few questions about. But I guess was it you that also sent a few letters here that had a thumb drive in them? It was sort of a sheaf of definitely a sheaf
Yeah.
of the yellow paper, but then there would always be a thumb drive scotch taped into it, and I'm just assuming that included some of the supporting files that you've been sending around.
Yes, and I'm sorry if I didn't sign my name to that, but yes, I do. I will send you. Oh God! Sometimes when I get to writing in the legal pad, it can go. I filled up a half a legal pad just on one letter to Pat Sajak.
Is that
So
right?
absolutely, front and back, and I don't recognize the margins neither. I go straight
Oh,
to the edge of the page. But so yes, it's very likely. In fact, yes, I can confirm. I have sent you numerous letters with numerous thumb drives in them, full of attachment because I suppose I could print everything out and send it to you like that, but then the postage starts going up higher. I don't want to pay
Mm.
more than a first class letter postage to send anything to anybody. So I'd rather to send you the thumb drive
Well, that
and just
is
hope you open
appreciated.
it. Yeah,
And
my
yes, I
pleasure.
have opened some. So, Randy, have you ever thought about adjusting slightly just to include other movies and not just this
Oh,
Life of Brian, which, I'm pretty young and I've never even heard of that movie. And so have you ever thought of just including, maybe all movies that aren't glorifying God? Or why is it that you just have you actually seen Life of Brian?
I've
And
seen it
is
many, many, many times. And
okay.
it is the worst of the worst. I really am also upset about The Last Temptation of Christ.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
okay.
very happily picketed that one as a teen.
Awesome.
And uh and I'm still trying to tell people, because that one's on Amazon Prime right now. And all
Oh,
you
it
have to do is be
grieves the heart.
somebody who wanted to save on postage, and you
Mhm.
didn't mean to invite the devil into your home.
Oh,
So there's that one. So yes, I have expanded, as a matter of fact, to a whole other movie. It's been a 100% expansion in my efforts from The Life of Brian into The Last Temptation of Christ. But now you have presented to me something very difficult for me to contemplate, which I never had before, which is the idea that by telling people, please don't see this, it could be the first they're hearing that it exists.
Ah,
And that is
yes,
not
definitely
something I
for
want to
me.
do.
I've never heard of that comedy group you said, the Snake Patrol, or whatever they were called. I've never heard of
Yeah.
of
They're
Life
Monty
of
Python.
Brian.
You've got
Okay.
Michael Palin and John Cleese and Terry
oh yeah,
Gilliam. He's
yeah.
the only American in the group. Graham Chapman, who is fully frontal nude in Life of Brian.
Oh no.
Eric
Oh
Idle,
no.
whom I forget, Terry Jones. Those are the
Wow.
guys, and I don't find them funny at all.
Well,
Oh.
and Eric Idle, it's in the name.
He's a
See,
false idol.
See
Yeah.
right there. Now, I am familiar with Monty Python, Randy, and I was under the impression that they were somewhat of a wholesome group, just because they did stuff about the Holy Grail, which I thought was trying to point people towards Christ. But you know what? I have not seen the Life of Brian. So I am so glad that you are alerting good and upright Christians to let them know that that is a stumbling block right there. And I
Yep.
just wanted to ask, if this isn't too personal a question, is
Mm-hmm.
who's Brian?
Okay, it's a very complicated movie. It's almost as though they knew they would get in trouble for making a nasty movie about Jesus. And
Oh,
so they made a nasty movie about somebody named Brian who was born the same day in the same place as Jesus and has a
Oh.
similar journey through life to Jesus, but living parallel in the same
ah,
time frame as Jesus. And he is a reluctant Messiah in this, but it's all just a thinly veiled excuse for making fun of Jesus. And by the
oh,
way, I do have to say that Holy Grail movie, while I do like the title, how sweet is it to have the word holy in the title of a film? It's awfully rare,
awesome, awesome.
but I'm afraid that film is rather irreverent. And
Oh
I
no.
and I've seen that one. If I've seen Life of Brian 100 times, I've seen that Holy Grail film 200 at least, and it is the depiction of God in that film is an affront to people of faith, and I
Oh,
need to tell people, stay away.
And what keeps
that's
bringing you
awesome.
back to the film so many times if you know in your heart of hearts that this is just not God honoring?
Or funny.
Well, the way I feel about it is that I have been corrupted by having seen it the first time, because when we was picketing, I remember we was picketing. It was The Last Temptation of Christ when I was a teen, and somebody said, "How can you picket a film you haven't even seen it, and how can you get it?" And I took that to heart, and I bought a ticket and I went to see it, and I was very upset and scandalized. You literally see Willem Dafoe as Jesus humping on his bride, and it's very
Oh
just, do you see
no.
a naked human ass? I'm sorry.
Oh,
I don't mean to. I'm sorry to use that word. It's
and especially that one, because you can tell that Willem Dafoe's bum probably looks exactly like his face, which is really hard to look at.
You'd imagine.
exactly. It really does. But anyway, okay. I said, now I have all. You can't tell me you can't complain because you haven't seen it, because I have seen it, and I followed that logic through to also The Life of Brian, and now this Holy Grail. And once you've seen it one time, I have an obligation to tell other people, don't. I have, you shouldn't. And it doesn't matter whether I see it one time or two times or three, the damage is done. And so
Yep.
how is it that I come back to watching it another time? Typically, it's I'm in the middle of writing a letter to somebody. I'm a quarter of the way through a legal pad, and I'm reaching for an example, a specific example of a line of dialogue or something like that, and I won't have it to hand. And so I will log in and watch it again. And I end up watching usually all the way through just because now I'm farming for more examples of terrible things to put in my letter. Harvesting,
Right.
hunting, I'm gathering, hunting and gathering.
Yeah, it's almost like the last email you sent was I would say a transcript really, or a script, I guess, of the movie, because it also had camera directions and
Yes.
headings for where the scenes were taking place.
Well, that's an initiative that I undertook to say, let me, so I don't have to watch it again, get it in written form, a transcript. But then as you're typing up all the dialogue, you're realizing, well, what about all the nonverbal business and all that stuff? Because some of that's important as well. So you end up putting that in there. And then you start thinking to yourself, well, now what about the locations? And then you start Googling screenplay format, and it leads you to, next thing you know, you're buying Final Draft. And then you're in their Final Draft and you're putting in, and then somebody tells you, you could buy the script, but I have not done that. I don't know who I'm enriching by doing that. So what I have is my own version of the scripts of a lot of these offensive films that I've
Is that what the FDX? Because I couldn't open any of the FDX files. It just kept saying that I have an old version of.
Oh, you do?
It just.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but the only answer is to upgrade to FDX. I mean, it will downgrade it. The software will downgrade an FDX to an FDR, but you don't want to do that because it's going to screw up your formatting. So please don't do that. I worked very hard on that formatting. But listen, I can't send it to you as a PDF.
Okay, yeah.
The only reason I hesitate to do that is that sometimes you'll do it and you will have involuntarily deselected include title page, and the title page won't go. So, but as long as I remember to include the title page, I'm more than happy to send it to you as a PDF. And FDX as a PDF is fine. But you just need to tell me that you don't have access to the FDX. But I will tell you, you ought to upgrade. You really ought to upgrade. It's $149, and that is a lot. But all you have to think of is that once you've sold one screenplay, it's paid for.
I wish there was another option, because I don't write screenplays.
There is another option. It's called Fade In, and it's for free. And it's just about the same software. In fact, in some ways it's better because you can have two windows open at the same time.
Okay. Yeah, it just doesn't seem like anybody that listens to this podcast would need to know that. But, at the end of the day, they might also not need to know about this movie because a lot of people haven't seen it these days. But I guess, just to circle back.
Oh, you became
one
frozen
thing that did strike me.
You said at the end of the day.
Right. Oh, okay. At the end of the day, I'm not sure if people that listen to this podcast will need to know any of that, just like they won't need to know probably about the movie this specifically. But I think it is a good reminder to have them steer clear of these non-God honoring, or this pair of non-God honoring films. But something that came up with what you said was,
I'm sorry, can I interrupt you for just one quick moment and just say,
oh, sure.
Just the one downside of using Fade In is that other people don't use it. And so if you are collaborating on a script with someone else, then you have a whole issue there. It's just easier. That's the main reason you would use Final Draft, is that's the more common one that other people have. But go ahead. What were you saying?
Right. Yeah, because I did notice, you do have in big sort of highlighted letters, the industry standard, and then you will have links to, the different forms. I just didn't know what all these files meant. I couldn't open a lot of them.
Oh, well, I'm very sorry to hear that. And I wish that you had simply responded with that. And I would have taken measures. I would have included everything as a PDF. I did not know that you're sitting there frustrated, not able to open an FDX file.
Right. Well, none of that matters, but I will tell you that one question that None of that matters, but I did want to say, and Hallie, you might agree, is that the only the only person that I feel like that has aged well over the last 9 years is Willem Dafoe.
Ah.
Because if you I've always thought he had the Benjamin Button disease or something, because truly he's
Yes,
aging in reverse. When he
Yeah.
was in his 20s, I thought he was 85 years old.
I absolutely agree with you, and I'm so thankful that you brought that up. Because if you go and you watch Platoon, which is I don't recommend that, because a character in that film wakes up after a difficult evening of combat and bloodshed to find that he's lost a testicle.
Oh,
And
No,
oh yes, that's Charlie Sheen. Anyway,
really
that's what
misplaced,
happens
or
to him. Don't see it, but Willem Dafoe looks terrible in that movie. It's hard to look at his face. You're not happy to see him when he shows up on the screen. But I recently saw him in a film where he was trapped in a house that he was trying to rob for
okay.
several weeks, and I thought he looks fantastic now. I don't know what
Yes,
happened.
I know, and I just think maybe it's just beta eating or HGH or whatever he's on, but I think more older men need to do whatever he's doing because he looks fantastic.
oh,
I could not
I
agree more.
I didn't realize that he played Christ in The Last Temptation of Christ. I mean, that is sick because he's the same actor that did Body of Evidence with Madonna, sticking needles in their skin and all that. I think you see his behind in that
How do you
one
know about
too.
that movie, Howie?
The reason I know about Body of Evidence is because I found it hiding on top of the console that our TV, VCR, DVD player units are all inside of. I was dusting up top on the top. I found some VHS tapes up there. I pull it down there from the library. One of them is Body of Evidence that I put in. Look, and the next thing I see is Madonna naked with Willem Dafoe naked. His behind does look exactly like his face, so you do know whose butt it is. He couldn't use a butt double, I'll tell you that right now, because you would know. And
Right.
it's the same texture of skin. And I
Mm-hmm.
I and so I went straight to my son Day, who's a teenager, and I said, I found your sick materials that you're checking out of the library. And he said, Mom, I don't even have a library card. I don't use a VHS tape. That's Dad. And I was like, oh, well, your father is not, renting Willem Dafoe and Madonna movies. And so I took away his iPhone for 2 weeks and told him to stop lying to me and to go suck on a bar of soap. But I just don't I don't I think I'm just really concerned. And the more I think about it, Randy, I
Hmm.
think you should be boycotting and alerting Christians to a lot of movies. I mean, your work might be cut out for you because there's so much that's just an absolute affront to a good and loving God.
Well, I suppose you're right, and I'm sure you're right. But nothing I've seen has been worse to me than this Life of Brian, except for possibly The Last Temptation of Christ. And
Okay.
so I am very focused on those two movies. And I'll be honest with you, once I have vanquished those two films, then I think it will free me up to maybe work on some others. But the battle goes on. Both of these are, you know what? Sometimes you look up a movie, you care to see a movie, and you have to rent it for $3.89, and
Mhm.
it and then you have 30 days to begin to watch it. But once you watch it, you have only 2 days. How they came up with that, I don't know. But
Mhm.
Mm.
these films that I'm talking about, The Life of Brian and The Last Temptation, they are not subject to the 389 or the 48-hour watching window. These are
Oh
all
yeah.
you need to do is be somebody who wanted to save on shipping from Bezos, and also somebody who just accepted the free month of Netflix, and there it is for you.
Yep.
That's all.
Yep.
That's what I'm trying to say. They are practically being served into your home. You don't even need a
Uh-huh.
library card.
And I
That's
can
right.
I can imagine this takes up a lot of your time, Randy. I mean, are you retired at this point? About how old of a guy are you? And is this most of your daytime activity these days?
Yes, this is most of my daytime activity these days.
Oh, what's the
I
rest?
well, what I am mostly is a handyman for hire around my
Okay.
neighborhood, and
Okay.
so, but that's I had I had a very good job, to be honest with you. That I was subject to dismissal from my job because
Oh,
it was an issue where, do you know this? And maybe this is something your listeners ought to understand. If you work at a job where you are working on a computer at work, at some point, the gentleman who you work for may say to you, you are spending an enormous amount of time working on things that are not relevant to your job here on this computer. And
oh,
you might try to say that isn't true, but he will have evidently the information. In other words, if it's a work computer, they have access to what you've been doing on it.
Oh,
So, in that sense, I was a telemarketing supervisor, and I
okay.
was writing lots of emails and letters and watching those films down again. And that was most of my day. And my employer became aware of it through the use of computers.
Oh, I see. I
And
see.
that
So
was
it
a
seems
good
like
job.
really. And was your wife okay with you sort of shifting your focus into, doing this full-time movie thing plus the handyman stuff?
Well, she struggled a little bit with the extent to which we had to downsize our lives because, when you're getting a handyman career off the ground, number one, you have to learn how to fix things. And that's very difficult.
Oh, I'm sure.
Number two, you have to invest in the tools, and that's
yep,
very expensive.
yep.
Number three, you have to promote your business, and that's very expensive. And I guess I'm up to four. The first, I'd say, 200 jobs you do need to be, as they say, pro bono, just to get the word out there that you're doing this. So it became not only to where there wasn't income coming in from the telemarketing supervising job, which again was a good job, but this it was money going out the door, and it was not. So she was upset that she had to take on two other jobs, and but we didn't have an issue with her. Sometimes you hear, oh, it's an issue with me being home all the time. It wasn't, because she was not home anymore because she now has three jobs. So it wasn't one of those things where we're bumping into each other in the kitchen that you hear about.
Mm.
It was, she's
I guess
round the
that
clock.
explains the email signature that I was curious about, the handy with Randy. I'll fix anything with a hammer. Uh,
Well,
so
that's right.
is that you just have a hammer right now? Is that the tool that you're mostly working with?
Yes, well, but oh, here's the problem. I spent an enormous amount of money putting my logo and whatnot on the side of my car. And what I should have done is spend more time locking my car, because people will steal tools. So I did have more
Oh,
than a hammer. I invested hundreds and hundreds of dollars in power tools, and they was just taken. And you call the police and tell them, no, I didn't have the car locked. And they don't even, at that point, they don't even consider it a theft, basically.
oh,
Oh,
I mean, that is America right now, isn't it?
isn't that right? And Randy, I wanted to tell you, I'm personally glad that your wife has had to take on these jobs because I think she's the best server at Buca de Beppo, and
Oh, bless your heart.
I always request one of her tables. And in fact, if you would tell her, I'm sorry I haven't been in there, I'm mostly now going over to Don Protini's because it's a full Italian restaurant where everything is protein. And so that works for my husband, who's on an all animal protein diet. And I like to go over there and be able to have fettuccine Alfredo and all sorts of white foods and know that it's only protein. So it's nothing personal. And I did like the family style over there at Buca de Beppo.
I understand. And I'll tell you, to be perfectly honest with you, she doesn't consider it a perfect job, because they do have that photo of the Pope in the
Yep.
Ugh.
in the party room. And she has, she covers it up a lot of the
Yeah.
time.
Oh, it'll turn your stomach looking at that.
Yes, I don't care for him,
He's
particularly
probably
this one.
someone where the face matches the back too,
Oh, is that right?
I would
Well,
imagine.
I haven't seen this Pope's rear end, but I'm sure you're right.
You can picture it though, just looking at him. And I do think Catholics are wolves in sheep's clothing, but they do get some stuff right.
Hmm.
They're anti-abortion. You can't get an abortion at a Catholic hospital, and I really appreciate that.
Yes, that's
You
right.
know,
And the Catholics who are serving on our Supreme Court, they may be weird in any number of ways, but I like a lot of their decisions.
See, that's exactly right. And you know what? The Pope did come out and say, well, I liked it that he said gender affirming surgery is wrong, but I didn't like that he included surrogacy because that one affects me. And so I don't like it that he's against surrogacy and that he thinks that's in the same category as altering your body. And my kids will say, but mom, you've had a breast reduction, you got your ears pierced, you've altered your body. And but I'm only doing it in ones that don't grieve the heart of God, as you can imagine.
Absolutely. And I hope he didn't use the term gender affirming. I don't like it. It's
I
almost
don't understand it.
it's almost a gender affirming to say gender affirming. Do you know what I mean?
I
Oh,
do.
see, that's right. It's like you're saying you're afraid to alert people to these funny movies that are making fun of Jesus. It's a slippery
It's
slope,
a
isn't
snake
it?
eating its own tail, isn't
That's
it?
right.
I think that's exactly right. And when you say that, it makes me think of that they're called themselves Monty Python. And as I always say, it's it was the snake that tempted Eve to eat the apple,
See,
wasn't it?
see,
Yes.
it
And I
sure
don't know whether
was.
that was a python. I think they call it an asp. But either way, it's a snake.
We got it. That's great,
Wow.
dude. So
Andy, what a treasure. So fun
you're
to play
so
with
fun to
you.
play with.